Hey, right. Reality check is back. It's back to back reality checks. And our last one a little bit over. So we wanted to push this one back because I wanted to make sure that we give the same amount of respect to both interviews. So I wanted to make sure that we had a little extra time. So because we're talking about a very, very, very different subject. So we're getting ready to have Angela Stanton King. Many of you guys know Angela Stanton King from being a reality star, being on television. She's a very vocal activist on social media. And she also just ran for a political audience. She ran for Georgia's 5th congressional district in this year's election. So she did not get the seat, but the fight and her work continues. And so I wanted to have a conversation with her just about some of the misconceptions that people had about her campaign, and then also about what comes next. We know that politics has been a very, very divisive topic in our community. And I think that as long as we as African Americans see one party as good and one party as evil, that can be detrimental to us, because we need to make sure that we are open and ready to listen to whatever party is going to serve us best. And that's my personal views, not necessarily the views of Rolling Out, but I'm a personality here, so I can state my personal views. I just think that we should always be willing to educate ourselves. We should always be open to listen. That doesn't mean that you have to be open to your mind being changed, but you should definitely be willing to listen, definitely be willing to educate yourself. And so hopefully that's what tonight's conversation is going to be about. I hope that you guys will listen with an open heart and an open mind. I know a lot of us feel very, very strongly and very, very passionately about this last election. And that's to be expected, but we still need to be open to listening to what happens on the other side and being receptive to that. And you never know, there could be information that could relate to you in ways that you did not know. So we're going to wait a few minutes for Angela to join us. She is coming, like I said, we just finished the election. I'm going to go ahead and resend her the link so she can join. But in the meantime, if any of you guys were on and you heard the last conversation that I had with KG Smooth from Ready to Love, I love that show so much because it really, really taps into and kind of gives us a mirror image of us as African Americans and some of the struggles that you have dating, with after a certain time in life. I think people can give up on dating, or they can start to feel like love is not there. But whenever love comes, it's always appreciated. And I think that it's never too late for anybody to fall in love. So I love talking about the show. I love hearing you guys' feedback. We had a great conversation. So now it's time for reality check on a little bit heavier reality check. Now, if you did not tune in to the first reality check today, you may not have seen that in addition to talking to KG Smooth, I also had a chance to try a Black business. And I think this year has shown us all that we need to be supporting each other, right? On a very local level, on a very intimate level, on the community level, we need to be supporting each other. So I had the opportunity to support a Black business called Legacy Pies. And if you guys are interested, you can find them at www.legacypies.com, or you can go to their Instagram, which is Legacy Pies. But now I'm going to go ahead and add Angela Stanton King to the broadcast. Hello, lady.
Hi, Crystal. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to Reality Check.
Man, it's awesome to be here, and it's awesome to see you again. And you're beautiful as always.
Oh, thank you. You too. We were trying to do this before, and we're just making it happen today. But as I was saying, I think that, there are a lot of people that have very strong emotions about this past election. And I think that's a normal thing. There were a lot of things at stake. And you and I have known each other for years. And one thing I've always said is that people need to be open to educating themselves, and they need to be open to listening to opinions that don't align with their own. That's the only way we can grow. And that's why this conversation was so important. So just picking it up from right there. I know you know how to pick that ball up and take it, but what do you think about our community and the hesitance to listen and educate ourselves so many times?
You know, one of the things that you said, Crystal, is that you've known me for years. And um, in those years that you've known me, you know that I've been one to just have a heart for the community and want to do things to better our community. And I haven't been about politics until recently this last year. So I genuinely have the passion in me to want to see our communities better. My run for politics was because I've been here when everyone has been saying, they're like, hey, you know, there are really no Republicans that speak for us. There are really no Republicans, you know, that represent us. Well, then we need to make sure that there are some Republicans that do, because it's so important for us to have a seat right at the table. I think what we're failing to realize here as a people is that politics are bipartisan. And I think that we cheat ourselves when we say, hey, a Black person has to be Democrat. You know, it's a balance of powers. There's power on both sides. Democrats don't have all the power and the Republicans don't have all the power. But together, right, they have to work together to make things happen for the people. And that's why it's in our best interest to make sure that there's someone for us on each side. I also think that it's disrespectful to say that if I'm not a Democrat, that means that I don't care about the Black community. Because in my mind, I actually do care about the Black community. I care about the Black community so much that I wanted to bring a different message when it comes to the issue of abortion. You know, we're talking so much about Black Lives Mattering, and I don't think that we've gotten a clear message across to our youth that, you know, when one of our young women is pregnant, that's a Black life in the womb. And I think that was a conversation that needed to be had. If we really, really wanted to make a difference, then we have to begin to do things differently. So I just don't like the fact that we have boxed ourselves in once again. You know, when it comes to someone white, they can be a Republican, they can be a Democrat, they can be an independent. They get to choose, you know, whatever party they want to belong to, and they don't have to worry about getting blackballed, or they don't have to worry about being banned, or they don't have to worry about being shut out from their community. But here it is, once again, if you're Black and you decide that you don't want to be a Democrat, then you are, you know, outcast by your own people. To me, that's another form of oppression, to tell me that I have to believe, you know, in things that I just don't necessarily agree with. I'm never going to, even though I understand that there are some situations where a woman has to, you know, basically have an abortion, but I'm never going to agree with promoting abortion like healthcare. I'm never going to agree with giving a message that abortion is our best option. And, you know, there are a whole lot of things with the, you know, the sexualization of children that I just don't agree with. But because of that, you know, that's not to say, hey, I have to agree with these things in order to be accepted. What is the message that we're portraying here? And then how do we begin to work together?
Right. I think that it's interesting. You named several topics, and I think I want to say first, and, you know, this is reality check, so we keep it real. As far as our community and African Americans feeling like they can't go outside their party. Actually, in my understanding, that does not happen. People get a certain level of financial independence or affluence, and they do consider other parties. They just don't talk about it. I have a lot of very wealthy friends that are Republican, but they would never come out and say that. I have one that came out and said it very loudly. Two that said it very loudly, but you all had a lot of people, and in your situation, anyone who is given a pardon by someone whose life has changed, it would be foolish to me for you not to show some be open, at the very least be open to what that person is saying, because they've changed your life. But there's a problem with our community when we can do things behind closed doors. We don't feel confident enough to do them, or we don't feel welcome enough to do them in a public place. And I know that people know there's this underlying belief that once you get a certain level of money, that you will turn your party. But my thing is, why do we assume that African Americans are not doing well financially? Like, why is that the assumption, and then when I do get to, when I start making some money, I can change my mind. That's not my reality. A lot of friends that are doing very well. You have a lot of friends that are doing very well. So I think we're taking like old school attitudes into a time period that does not fit what's going on. Do you see this? Because I know you had people.
Let me tell you something. I don't know any broke Republicans, and I've heard a person say that before, and it just happens to be true. And I think that it's the mindset, and that didn't mean that they're better than anyone. It's just you are who you think you are, right? They say that all the time. We are what we eat. No, we actually are what we think. And so I think that it's what you brought up about, loyalty is important, because I've been seeing this post go around social media about DC Young Fly, and apparently he had been contacted by a network and offered millions of dollars to pick up on, what's the name of that show they had?
Wilding Out.
And he said no. He said, I'm not getting ready to cross Nick Cannon out. This man has given me too many opportunities. And guess what? DC Young Fly, and I congratulate him because I'm a loyal person. He was praised for that. But me, when it comes to the president of the United States, and regardless of how anybody feels about him, he is the president. And he gave me an opportunity, and I'm very grateful for it. And you're my friend. You know me. I'm just a loyal type of person. Now that doesn't mean we excuse everything that everyone does, but from my own personal involvement with the administration, I can attest to the things that were done that I was involved in. And I'm just here to tell everybody watching this live right now that had I ever suspected there was something done to harm a community of people that I belong to, then I wouldn't have anything to do with it. People have to remember that not only am I a Black woman, but I'm also a Black mother. I have 3 Black sons. I have 2 Black daughters. I've got a Black husband. I've got a Black brother. I have Black cousins. I have Black family members in jail. So just because I'm not Democrat doesn't mean that you get to erase who I am as a person. That's so disrespectful to all of us to say that, hey, you guys all have to think the same. You're only allowed to have a one-track mind. That's not true.
We gotta say she is a Black Republican that does have a Black husband. I got not that color matters, but I'm just saying,
it's rare.
It's rare and it's appreciated. You know what I mean? So I have seen that. I want to ask you, we talked about abortion. I know abortion is a very sticky subject. So I think that that's not what this show is really about. But what I do want to ask you is, because we've had personal conversations about that, how do we educate and inform women about options other than abortion? Right?
Well,
so do that without making them feel guilty if they've had an abortion or if they're planning to have an abortion. How do we educate and empower without diminishing?
I think the first thing that we have to do is help them understand that it is a life. I think one of the reasons why it's so easy for us to have an abortion or say abortion or support abortion is because people don't actually believe that it's a life. And unfortunately, when we really use our brain and begin to think, then it has to be a life, because if it wasn't alive, you wouldn't need an abortion to kill it. So the first thing we have to do is begin to restore the value of life. Once we do that, then what we need to do is promote pregnancy prevention. I say it all the time. Hey, if we don't create the life, then we don't have to end the life. We have to begin to teach that birth control is, in fact, exactly what it is. It's birth control. It prevents the pregnancy from taking place. But after the pregnancy has taken place, then it's not birth control. Abortion is population control once the life has already been created. So we cannot continue to use abortion as a form of birth control, because that's not what it is. But if we're teaching pregnancy prevention, if we're pushing abstinence as much as they're pushing sex education, if we're fostering entrepreneurship throughout our communities, Crystal, this is something you and I have partnered on several times in the past. If we give women an option, teach them, show them how to make money, Put them in a situation where they don't feel like abortion is the only option. They want to know that even if that father walks away, because we know fatherlessness is a big issue in our community, women are scared. They need to know that, hey, I'm going to be able to support myself and financially support this child. So then that comes to people like us, right? The elders in the community. I know we aren't that old. Let me say the aunties and the uncles. Some of the stuff that Ray does, but let's begin to empower them and teach them so they can, have access to financial literacy and become financially free. And I think that that'll take the burden off of many people also. I think we have this stigma that, we can't afford another child. I know that's why I did it, because I'm post-abortive myself. And I don't mind sharing my story because I want women to know that I'm not better than you, but I want you to be better than me. You don't have to make the mistakes that I've made. I've already made the mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. And let's begin to sow into our communities. Let's begin to speak life. And let's begin to break this cycle of government dependency, because as long as we're dependent on the government, then we have to abide by their rules.
That's true. If you're just joining us, we're talking with, I call her political and social activist, Angela Stanton King. You just basically had the gall to go up in a race that many people said was pitted against you, and actually had some great movement and traction. I want to ask you, just on a personal level, what did you learn? Because I've never known you to talk about politics until this year. I think a lot of people got involved in politics this year. What did you learn from this congressional race that you just completed November 3rd?
I've learned that you're not going to get a fair shot being a Black Republican. That's what I learned. I learned that people will put party affiliation over people. I believe that people pick parties over what's necessarily best for them, because if you think about the campaign we were running and what we were offering, I think that a lot of people went and voted Democrat just because of the D, not because of policy. And I think that's where we fail ourselves in Black America. So many times we see that we vote for the person and not the actual policy. And I think that's the biggest mistake. I think that being an Atlanta native, someone that's been here my entire life, I mean, the platform, you've been around, Crystal, starting with the book all the way up to the show on BET produced by Queen Latifah and Nikki Gilbert, all the way up to the White House fighting for criminal justice reform, then getting my own party and running for office. I ran because I felt like, we needed a real one in office. And I see that I didn't get a fair shot. And it's just because people are always going to hold your past against you. We act so much like we're for criminal justice reform. And one of the things that my race taught me was that, everybody is for criminal justice reform until the reformed criminal runs for office.
Wow. That's a reality check quote there. People may not be ready for that. Are you open to continuing to pursue politics? Or have you
Here's the thing, Crystal, I have a heart for the community, and I do it just because it's a passion, right? Like I've been working in the community for the past 16 years, and Crystal, you work with me, it's days we don't get a paycheck. We raise money, and that money goes out to our projects and everything that we want to do for the community. So it's not about the money, but I don't think that I'm going to have the power that I need to really make the change that I want to change without being in the office. But that won't stop me from continuing to educate, from continuing to enlighten, for continuing to bring resources to our community. That's something that I'll never stop doing. A future run in politics right now, I'm kind of on edge because I'm paying attention to what's happening, in the 2020 election. And I know a lot of people say, hey, Angela, let it go. Trump lost. It's over. But, I've got a leg in this race also. And I just honestly feel as though it wasn't fair. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers. And I know that when I ran this race, my opponent, she didn't campaign. She didn't show up for any debates. She didn't do anything at all. And for her to get more votes than John Lewis ever had throughout the entire history of his career is questionable. And I think that I just want to sit back for a minute and see what's going to happen with this presidential election. If, the truth isn't brought to light, then I think that many people are going to lose faith in our government system. And I don't know where that puts us as a nation.
You talked you're very candid about your story, and that's something that you have. I think it's resonated with a lot of people. So I want to ask you, with the work that you do with the American King Foundation, that's actually how we met, and then we worked on a project, and then I came on board as a board member for the American King Foundation. Tell us about the work and why it's so important in making sure that we support returning citizens and their families here, as opposed to focusing on people. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concerned, but what do you think people don't understand about some of the things that are happening with families here in the United States?
To me, I get so frustrated because I sit back and I listen to people, and I know what happened with the 94 crime bill. I got plenty of friends that were locked up and taken off of the street for, selling drugs or whatever, trying to make it and trying to take care of their families. I think that what we're not understanding is when we have compassion for people at the border, wanting to break into America to have a better life, we're not understanding that there are people that are already here in America that are willing to take a chance at having a better life. That means that we got people on our own land, people in our own hoods, in our own communities, right, that are willing to break the law, to have a second chance. I don't think that people understand American law. I don't think that people understand that anybody arrested on this soil, if you're arrested and you have a child with you, then that you're going to be separated from that kid. The children aren't going to go to jail with you. Family separation is something that's been happening to our families since slavery, since we've gotten here. And I think that if we're going to be enraged about children in cages, then we can't forget the thousands of children in cages in American juvenile detention centers across this nation. And for me, that's big. I mean, I was that kid in the detention center. I was that kid that had been sexually abused, that had been hurt, that had been running away, that had been looking for love in all of the wrong places, that didn't have guidance, that didn't have someone to mentor her, someone to teach her. I was that kid. And because I was that kid, I know how it feels to be misguided. I know how it feels to be lost. Not only that, I was just reading a story today that came out in the AJC about 4 prisoners that have died at the federal jail right there on Boulevard and Constitution, right here in Atlanta. One of them was an 80-year-old man. He had been in jail since 1998, serving a life sentence for being in possession of a firearm while being a convicted felon. Stories like this, these are our peoples. These are the guys that's in the hood, and we're in a dangerous neighborhood, so maybe they walking around with a gun because they're afraid someone's gonna take their life. Get pulled over by the police. Oh, you're a convicted felon. You got a gun. Haven't even used the gun. Just have the gun in their possession. Now you've given this person a life without parole sentence. These are some of the people that I've been fighting for. So when we're talking about reuniting families, why do we not have that same fight and that same passion in us to reunite our families, the thousands of families that were separated by this crime bill put in place by Joe Biden? So that's one of the reasons for me that I got involved in criminal justice reform. I didn't have any plans on running for Congress. It kind of just came about. And I said, why not? You know me, I'm absolutely fearless. But I felt like I could be in a position to really, really make a difference because there are no voices like mine in Congress. But criminal justice reform to me was important because I lived it myself. And I know so many people that have been impacted by it. And I'm going to continue to fight.
Okay. So congratulations. I know you're finishing up your psychology degree.
Girl, done today. Done today.
Finishing that up. What's next? What is the next?
The Angela Stanton Show. The Angela Stanton King Show is something that I've been sitting on for probably about a year now. Didn't know exactly when to execute it. I wanted to execute it before the run for Congress, but the run for Congress came up. So our first show is going to be airing this Wednesday morning from 7 to 9. It's on YouTube, the Angela Stanton King Show, but we'll also be broadcasting live from my Twitter, from my Instagram, and also from my Facebook. It's going to be so awesome. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about people. Our tagline is real people, real problems, and real solutions. So we're going to mix politics in with some real life stuff. We're going to talk about the stuff that nobody else is willing to talk about. You're going to get me.
You were talking about the stuff that nobody was really talking about the entire time. So
Right.
it definitely makes sense that you would have that platform. Will you have guests? What's the show going to feel? What's the feel of the show?
We're going to also have guests. It's going to be kind of like a morning show, but I want to get some people that are involved in politics on, and I want to ask them some questions because I think that people in our community need to have a little bit better understanding of politics. And I also want to bring in some Republicans so they can hear them, so they can talk to them directly, so they can get rid of this stigma that's out there that Republicans are racist or all Republicans hate Black people. That is so far from the truth. I wish that people would recognize and understand that someone like me, right? If you guys know my story, someone that's been to prison, someone that's lost their mom, someone that's been sexually abused. And I'll tell you something, I wasn't perfect. I've made many, many mistakes. I've never been ashamed of where I come from, but I got so much support from the Republican Party in this congressional race that I have to question now when people say that that party is racist. I think that that's completely untrue. And I just want to do what I can to bring us together and to show people that regardless of what side we're on, we all need to fight to do what's right for America. And I think that if we're not fighting for our children, then nothing else really matters.
I do have to ask you because I think some of the issues with the Republican Party is that people have seen a lot of racist things happen, right? I think racism and classism are almost interchangeable sometimes, right? And people are realizing that they may think something is racist, and it could be because we have seen racist things, in my opinion, on both sides. This is, again, my opinion. This is not the opinion of Rolling Out. I think there's racism in all areas. There's classism in all areas. But I have to ask you, what is your response to people that would say that they've seen, especially with all the police brutality and the numerous consistent killing of Black men and Black women at the hands of the police, and not feeling the support from the Republican Party? What is your response to that? Because I think that
because I'm a person that does research, I know the whole Black Lives Matter movement was started up under the police killings of Barack Obama, right? So when we talk about Khalif Browder, when we talk about Alton Sterling, when we talk about Freddie Gray, when we talk about Michael Brown, when we talk about Tamir Rice, when we talk about Sandra Bland, when we talk about Philando Castile, these are all police shootings that happened up under Obama's presidency. Now, it all fell on Trump, and I'm not here defending anybody. What I'm saying is I think that we point the finger, right, instead of finding the solution. I think that, to me, like you said, racism is on both sides. And I think that as a people, we have to begin to really think about, well, what racism is, right? Because for me, I'd rather have somebody tell me in my face they don't like me than to have somebody pretending to be my friend and stabbing me in my back, right? So for me, like when we talk about racism, I think that it's racist to continuously push abortion to the Black community. That's something that the Democrat Party does. So I think it all depends on what we view as racist. And I think that we can't blame the entire police force for the instances that we have seen, because that's just like saying, well, all Black people are criminals or all Black people are lazy and dumb. No, all police officers aren't killers. All police officers aren't racist. We have to begin to deal with these things on an individual basis and not think that if one killing happens over here in Louisiana and then another killing happens over here in New York, that it's the entire police force across the nation. No, it's just bad apples that need to be, pushed out. And I think that it's not going to be safe for any of us until we begin to recognize the difference between good and evil and stop thinking that evil is a race of people or that evil is a religion or that evil is a political party. I can be the first one to tell you, when we talk about racism and things that white people have done, I've experienced or seen those things happen from one Black person to another. So it's like, okay, does that not make you racist just because you Black? Does that mean you get to come in the hood and you get to kill, my son or my brother just because you Black? Does that mean that my pain is going to be less because somebody I love died at the hands of a black man instead of a white man. We just got to begin to recognize what good and evil is. And I think that when we do that, we'll be better. And understanding that people are raised to have bias. Like all of us have some form of bias. And even when we go to the store, like there have been plenty of times I've gone to the nail shop. I don't speak Korean, but I'm sitting there and I got a size 13 shoe. I'm a big girl. I already know it. They talk about me. They talk about my feet. You understand where I'm coming from? Because my feet so big. I know it, but they still take my money. There are times when I go to the beauty supply store and they follow me around on the store. Can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? I ain't even got in the door yet. You understand where I'm coming from? But you still give them your money. You know, some of the gas stations in our community, you'll go in there, you'll shop with them, you'll give you your money. They'll slam your money down on the table, tell you to get out their store. We just have to depend on, learn how to work through biases, because we're never going to get rid of bias. And I think that when it comes to the advancement of black people, Harriet Tubman would have never freed the slaves if she was afraid of working with white people, okay? Or if she was afraid of working with the white man. I can't let the emotions of people stop me from doing the work that I've been called to do.
Right. Last question, Angela. What advice would you give? Because I feel like our community is really hurting. I feel like a lot of communities are hurting, but our community, African American community, is really hurting right now. A lot of jobs have been lost. A lot of jobs are going to continue to be lost because of the COVID virus that we're dealing with. Obviously, there's a lot of political angst going on. How can our community start the healing process and start to restructure and rebuild?
Man, listen. What's going on right now? 2020 has blown my mind. I think what's important for us, again, and I'll go back to this, me, you, and Ray all the time, financial literacy. Financial literacy. Even in situations like this where you got so many people dependent on the government. Well, what happens when the government shuts down? How do we survive? How many of you know how to make it without the government? And I think that's why it's important for us to get out and begin to teach within our own communities. We can no longer be dependent on the government to do what it is that they need to do for us. Now, I thought I was going to work a miracle, right? I thought I was going to get in Congress and solve all of our problems. Well, apparently it doesn't work like that. But how many years have we been, fighting to get in Congress? Or how long have we been yelling and saying, hey, give us reparations or give us a chance to get up out of the gutter? It doesn't work. How many times have we talked about rebuilding Black America, rebuilding our communities? I've said it before that we have so many entertainers. We have so many Black people that have made it. If we take the wealth of Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, and Diddy alone, go on and throw LeBron James in there because he always
put Tyler Perry in there.
Rebuild our communities, right? We can start there one by one. I think that it's up to us. I'm getting away from the blame the government, blame the government, blame the government. No, what I like to see is a coalition of community leaders and athletes and entertainers and people that are really, really concerned about the Black community to come together, and we begin to take the initiative to do this on our own. And we begin to do that, I think that we'll see some positive change.
I love that. All right, well, tell people how we can tune in. The show starts this week, Thanksgiving holiday week. Angela Stanton King Show on YouTube. Where can people find that? And I'm sure people are already following you, but if they're not, where can they follow you on social?
So the channel is the Angela Stanton King Show, just like that. So if you go to YouTube, type in the Angela Stanton King Show, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You guys can find me on Instagram at the Angela Stanton. I'm on Twitter at the Angie Stanton. Facebook, my friends list, I'm already at the max 5,000. This Thanksgiving, this Thursday, our organization, American King Foundation, we will be out on the streets of Atlanta feeding the homeless. We're not going to go feed them the next day. We're going to take them warm meals. If anybody wants to support, if anybody wants to donate, you guys can Cash App us at Ask Show, which is Angela Stanton King Show, or you guys can send us a donation through PayPal at the AKFORG, at gmail.com, or you guys can visit the website, theakf.org. Please take time to donate $10 or $5. Anybody from around the Atlanta area, you know you can't go outside and drive up and down our expressway without seeing tent cities. You can't get off of an exit without seeing someone homeless. It's also going to be cold. So while we're enjoying our families, let's not forget about those that aren't fortunate enough to have a warm meal. So everybody, please make sure you visit the website, theakf.org, or Cash App, Ask Show, and help us out. We'll be out on the streets with the cameras going live so you can see where your donations went. We're just going to continue to service our community. And Crystal, thank you so much again for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much. You guys, please check that out. Wednesday morning, you said 7 to 8, 7 to 9 a.m., the Angela Stanton King Show. All the information, you're going to continue to keep educating. And I think that's important, and definitely continuing the work with the American King Foundation on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. All right. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right. And so that wraps up our Thanksgiving week reality check. I hope that that the people that were tuning in for this actually listen, like I said, with an open heart. I think that as a community, one of the things that I definitely agree with Angela Stanton King on is that we have to start to empower ourselves. And that's what this is all about, from rolling out being an African-American media platform where we can tell our own stories under the leadership of Munson Steed, to be able to have that vision. It's so important for us to empower ourselves and to uplift our own community. I think that is the true power. So I thank you for hanging out with me today. I wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving with your friends and family. If you can't be with your family in person, you know you can always be with them in spirit. That's the most important thing. If you don't have your meal complete, you may want to pick up one of these legacy pies. Again, Black-owned business right here in Atlanta. For those of you that are not in Atlanta, you can go to the website, maybe send a gift certificate to a family member that is in Atlanta, right? Let's support each other. We love you and thank you for tuning in. And I'll see you guys next week right here on Reality Check.